Imagine a restaurant with one strange rule. Every table gets its own personal waiter for the whole evening. They stand there while you read the menu, they stand there while you chat, and when the kitchen takes 20 minutes, they stand at your table in full uniform, on full salary, staring at the kitchen door. 20 tables means 20 waiters, and at any moment, 19 of them are doing nothing. No restaurant on earth runs this way because it's comically wrong. Here's the uncomfortable part. That ridiculous restaurant is how most software has handled concurrency for decades. One dedicated worker per task, standing idle while its task waits. A real restaurant runs those 20 tables with 4 waiters. Watch one of them for 5 minutes, and you'll see them drop menus at 3, take an order at 7, pour wine at 12, hand a ticket to the kitchen, and circle back. 5 tables each, and every one feels looked after. The secret isn't speed. It's that at any moment, most tables don't need a waiter because the people at them are reading, chatting, chewing, or waiting on the kitchen. And waiting doesn't need a waiter. A table holds its own state just fine. Plates, ticket, half-finished meal. So a waiter only ever spends attention on the one table that needs something right now. And your web server is exactly this dining room. Right now, almost every request it's holding is waiting on the database, on another service, on a disk, on some phone with a weak connection. So whether that server handles 500 connections or 500,000 comes down to the restaurant question. Do you hire a dedicated worker for every table, or set up cheap tables and let a small crew work the floor? Operating system threads are the first answer. Goroutines are the second. And I know the phrase everyone reaches for. Goroutines are just lightweight threads. But by the end of this video, I want to talk you out of it. Because a goroutine isn't a smaller thread. It's a different thing entirely, run by some of the most elegant systems engineering you'll ever see. So here's what's actually under the hood, and the traps waiting once you believe goroutines are free. Let's make this concrete. We're building Pulse, an uptime monitor. Customers hand us URLs, and we check that each one is alive and how fast it answers. 50,000 endpoints, swept as often as we can manage. Here's the check, and it's nothing fancy. An HTTP request, measure the latency, record the status. That comment on the middle line is the whole video. A check takes about half a second, and almost all of it, DNS, connecting, waiting for the response, is pure waiting. 5 milliseconds of work wrapped in half a second of standing still. This function is a table waiting on the kitchen, and sequentially, the math is brutal. 50,000 checks at half a second each is almost 7 hours per sweep. As an uptime monitor, we'd notice your site went down yesterday. So here's the fix. Watch how much code it takes. The entire change is 2 letters. The wait group is just bookkeeping. The real event is that keyword. This program now launches 50,000 concurrent checks on a laptop. The sweep finishes in roughly the time of the slowest single check, and memory barely moves. Your instinct says Go must have started 50,000 threads. It did not. That laptop would be a space heater with a login screen. What actually happened is much stranger and much better. Go seeded 50,000 tables, and underneath, a small crew of waiters, roughly 1 per CPU core, started working the floor. Hold that sentence because it's the thesis of everything that follows. A thread is a worker, but a goroutine is the work itself, the waiter versus the table. The rest of this video is what that distinction is made of. So why would 50,000 threads be a horror story? Because a thread isn't a concept your program made up. It's a kernel object. The operating system creates it, schedules it, and keeps the paperwork, and that paperwork is expensive in 3 ways. The first cost is memory. When a thread is born, the OS reserves its stack up front as one fixed slab, 8 megabytes of address space on Linux, about a megabyte in Java, because it has no idea how deep your calls will go, and a fixed stack can never grow or move later, so it books the worst case every time. Multiply it out. 50,000 threads at 8 megabytes is 400 gigabytes of stack reservations. Most of that is a promise rather than physical memory, but the promises plus the kernel's per-thread bookkeeping are enough to bring the box to its knees. This is the personal waiter restaurant. Every thread arrives with a salary and a uniform, whether its table ever needs it or not. The second cost is the border. Your program and the kernel are two different countries, and every thread operation, creating one, parking one, waking one up, is a system call, a border crossing where you stop everything, switch into kernel mode, do the business, and cross back. Tens of microseconds each, which sounds tiny until you're doing it 50,000 times on a border where everything queues. And the third cost, the one people underestimate, is the switch. Moving a CPU core from one thread to another means saving the entire register state, running the kernel scheduler, and loading another thread's world. The visible bill is a microsecond or more, but the hidden bill is worse because the new thread arrives at a CPU whose caches are still full of the old thread's data, so it starts cold. And the scheduler doing all this is fair but blind, a floor manager who has never read a single ticket, rotating staff between tables on a strict timer. It has no idea your thread is 3 lines away from an HTTP call that will park it for half a second. Interrupting on a timer is all it can do. So thread per check means 50,000 salaried waiters, each spending 99% of the shift watching somebody chew. You're not paying for service, you're paying for waiting at full price. So what does Go actually set up when you type those two letters? Not a worker, a table. The name is a confession, by the way. Goroutine is a pun on coroutine, a function that can pause and resume, not on thread. The Go team told us what it was right there in the name, and we all heard thread anyway. Concretely, a goroutine is a small struct the Go runtime, ordinary user space code inside your own process, keeps in its own memory. This is lightly trimmed from Go's actual source. Read it like a table in service. The stack is everything sitting on the tabletop, every local variable, every call in flight. The saved program counter is the ticket. What course are we on? Where did we leave off? And the status says whether this table is being served, needs service, or is waiting on the kitchen. That stack starts at 2 kilobytes against the thread's 8 megabytes, 4,000 to 1. Our 50,000 checks come to about 100 megabytes of stacks, and 1 million Go routines, which people genuinely run in production, is a couple of gigabytes. So how does Go get away with 2 kilobytes when the OS insisted on 8 megabytes? My favorite feature in the whole language, Go stacks grow. Every function call starts with a tiny check. Do I have room? And if not, the runtime allocates a stack twice the size, copies everything across, rewrites every pointer, and continues like nothing happened. Your Go routine starts at a cafe table for 2, and the moment the party grows, it's moved to a bigger table mid-meal, plates, glasses, conversation, without ever noticing the move. The operating system could never do this. It has no idea where your pointers are. Go knows every one. It's the same knowledge that powers the garbage collector, spent on a second superpower. And because all of this lives in user space, there's no border to cross. Creating a Go routine takes a few hundred nanoseconds. Parking one means saving a handful of registers. Where was I? Where's my stack? And resuming means loading them back. That's the deep reason a waiter can walk away from a table mid-meal. The state lives on the table, not in the waiter's head, so any waiter can read the ticket and continue the service exactly where it left off. So Go routines are cheap to create, cheap to park, and cheap to resume, but tables don't serve themselves. Who works the floor? Inside the Go runtime, there are 3 characters, and the source code literally calls them G, M, and P. G is the Go routine, the table, which you've already met. M stands for machine, an actual OS thread, one of the few real, expensive workers Go keeps around. That's the waiter. And P, processor, is the one that confuses everyone, but restaurants solved it a century ago. A P is a section, a block of tables one waiter is responsible for, with a rail of pending tickets, the run queue. By default, you get 1 section per CPU core. The setting is Go max prox. And the house rule is that to serve Go code, a waiter must hold a section. 8 cores, 8 sections, at most 8 tables being actively served at any instant, whether the room holds 50 tables or 50,000. A waiter holding a section just works the rail, pull the next ticket, serve that table until it can't continue, set it down, move on. No border crossing, no kernel. And when their rail runs empty, they don't stand around polishing glasses. They check the shared overflow rail, then walk over to the busiest colleague and take half of their tickets. Not one, half. It's called work stealing, and it means the floor balances itself without a manager. Now the crown jewel. What happens when a table starts waiting on the kitchen? Our checks spend 99% of their lives blocked on the network, so this case decides everything. When a Go routine blocks on a socket, the waiter does not stand at the table. The runtime marks the table as waiting and registers the order with the netpoller, the expediter, the one person at the kitchen pass all night, watching every order that's still cooking. Underneath, it's a single kernel facility, EPEL on Linux, KQ on a Mac, that watches tens of thousands of sockets in one system call. So the waiter pulls the next ticket immediately, and half a second later, when the response arrives, the expediter calls it out. Table 704 is up, and that table goes back onto a section's rail, meal intact, picked up by whichever waiter gets there first. Your Go routine may well finish on a different thread than it started on, and it never knows. And that's how Go does what the OS couldn't. The OS manager rotated staff on a timer because it was blind. Go's scheduler works inside the restaurant and reads every ticket, because the blocking goes through the runtime itself. Every channel operation, every network call, and every lock is a moment where the Go routine politely hands its waiter back. 2 last pieces, quickly. Some waits can't be dodged, certain file operations and system calls. And when a waiter gets dragged into a long customs interview at the kernel border, the runtime takes their section and hands it to another waiter, hiring a fresh thread if it must. And for a Go routine that computes forever and never yields, a supervisor called sysmon circles the floor with a stopwatch. Hold your waiter past about 10 milliseconds, and the table gets a tap on the shoulder, someone else's turn. And that's the whole machine. Cheap tables, a small crew, sections, stealing, an expediter, and a stopwatch. If you've heard that Java recently added virtual threads, that's this exact model, arriving 12 years after Go bet the entire language on it. Before we go on, there's a distinction hiding in what we built, and it trips up almost everyone. 50,000 tables, 8 waiters, which means Go routines did not make our program compute any faster. At any instant, at most 8 tables are actually being served, 1 per core, same as it ever was. What Go routines did is make waiting free, 50,000 meals in progress while only 8 are being touched. That gap is the difference between concurrency and parallelism. Concurrency is structure, how many meals are in progress. Parallelism is execution, how many are being served this very instant. Go routines give you nearly unlimited concurrency, but parallelism stays capped by your cores, and no keyword will ever change that. Dealing with many things at once versus doing many things at once. That framing comes from Rob Pike, one of Go's creators, and Go is essentially that sentence turned into a language. So here's the honest performance rule. If your work is mostly waiting, network calls, databases, disks, timers, Go routines are a miracle. That's our monitor, where 7 hours became 30 seconds because the waiting stopped costing anything. But if your work is mostly computing, resizing images, crunching numbers, 50,000 Go routines on an 8-core machine give you 8 Go routines worth of progress plus scheduling overhead. You got more tables, not more waiters. Which tells you what Go really means. It doesn't say run this in parallel, and it doesn't even say run this now. It says this task can proceed independently. Runtime, schedule it as you see fit. It's a statement about the shape of your problem, not a demand for speed. Before you sprint off and put Go in front of everything that moves, here are the 3 ways this beautiful machine hurts people, and every one of them comes from forgetting that cheap is not free. The first trap is the ghost table. In a real restaurant, an abandoned table is obvious. You see the empty chairs, so you bus it and reset it. In Go, Nobody busses the table. A Go routine waiting for something that will never happen, a channel no one will ever send on, a server that will never answer, stays in the dining room forever. Status waiting, ticket open, memory held. It's called a Go routine leak, and our monitor ships with one right now because the HTTP call from segment 2 has no timeout. One dead endpoint that accepts connections and never responds, and every sweep seats another ghost table, stack, buffers, connection, all of it pinned and invisible. The rule worth engraving: every Go routine you start must have a known way to end. If you can't say, in one sentence, when a Go routine exits, you haven't written concurrency. You've written a leak with good intentions. The second trap is cheap times infinite. 2 kilobytes is nothing, but 2 kilobytes times seat everyone forever, no cap, is an outage. And it's usually not even the stacks that get you, it's what's on each table, a response buffer here, a database connection there, multiplied by a spike. Besides, firing 50,000 orders at once is a great way to flatten your own kitchen, in our case, the DNS server. The grown-up version keeps the tables but caps the crowd. 512 workers pulling from a channel of jobs. And yes, you're allowed to smile because we just rediscovered the worker pool, the same pattern thread programmers use. The difference is that we chose the number. It costs a megabyte instead of 4 gigabytes, and changing it means editing one integer. And the third trap is 2 pens on 1 ticket. The Go keyword does absolutely nothing about shared memory, so 2 Go routines writing to the same variable is 2 waiters scribbling on the same ticket at the same time. And because Go routines make concurrency easy to create, they make races easy to create too. Go's real answer is channels. You just saw one carrying our jobs. Go routines handing values to each other instead of scribbling on shared state. That idea deserves its own video, but until then, one non-negotiable habit. Run your tests with the race detector turned on and put it in your CI. It has embarrassed every Go programmer alive, and it's a lot cheaper than the outage. One last walk across the floor. It's late, and Pulse is in the middle of a sweep. The dining room is packed to the walls with meals in progress, every table about the size of a sticky note, while a small crew works the floor, stealing half a colleague's tickets whenever a rail runs dry. Over at the pass, the expediter watches a board full of cooking orders for the ding of one coming up, and a supervisor circles with a stopwatch. All of it costs about as much memory as a single browser tab, and when the sweep ends, the tables fold up and vanish into the garbage collector, because we made sure every meal could end. So here's the whole video in one breath. A thread is a worker, and a Go routine is work. Threads are expensive because every one carries a giant fixed stack and every decision crosses the kernel border. Go routines are cheap because the stack starts tiny and grows by copying, and the scheduling never leaves your process. A small crew works the floor, waiting costs nothing, tickets get stolen so nobody idles, and your only jobs are to make sure every Go routine can end, to cap the crowd, and to never let 2 of them scribble on the same ticket. Which is why I want the phrase, Go routines are just lightweight threads, out of your vocabulary. That's like calling a table a lightweight waiter. It's not a smaller version of the worker, it's a different thing entirely. It's the meal, packaged so cheaply that waiting became free. And that one idea is why a language can hand you 50,000 concurrent tasks on a laptop and call it a Tuesday. If this finally made Go routines click, a like genuinely helps more than you'd think, and subscribe if you want more ideas explained like this. And that question we left open, how all those Go routines talk to each other without ever scribbling on the same ticket, that's channels, Go's most beautiful idea, and it's getting its own video. See you there.